Hey everybody, we are here and you can hear me. I didn't start with no audio like last night. Um, Here we are, Shadowcasters Network, here to talk about Shadowrun 6th edition. Boy, was that fun last night, guys.
Not
Talking.
just last night. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of fun today talking with everybody, literally everybody in the
How
world,
amazing has
talking
it
about
been? Like,
Shadowrun.
yeah, so many people.
And we got lumped into that. Like we're we're like on top of that mountain for a good damn long while, which was really bizarre and
It's kind of intimidating.
yeah.
I feel that way because we are not, and I feel like it's important that I, at least for me, that I keep saying this over and over again. We are not officially like part of a Catalyst in any way, and we're not like, as people keep saying over and over again. This is the other thing I heard all day. We're not shilling for Catalyst in any way, really, at all. Um, but it feels like since we have the
But if you're here from 4chan, we totally are.
yeah, we're definitely shilling for
We're
Catalyst.
definitely in bed with Catalyst. Keep your eye out for more multiply food. Keep your eye out for more confusing grayware. I'm doing it just for you.
Yeah. I got a stack of bills over there that I got from Catalyst. That's how they pay. That's how they pay us. They just send us stacks of cash.
For my renovations.
Um,
So
but
some other news that I didn't know that was announced is there's a novella that just dropped
Yeah.
by Dylan Bertolo. It's highlighting one of the story of one of the iconic Shadowrun characters.
yes, that's awesome.
There's-
One of the
I think was it you? That was
Yes.
the target of the
Yes,
novel?
it was you.
it 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 led to a question that I have, which is I don't know, and who knows, maybe this is not what people want to talk about, so maybe we brush off this question real quickly, but I don't have any idea what what plot points, what meta plot arcs are carrying us from 5th to 6th. Is there anything like that? Anything big that is moving us forward?
There's some stuff in the Streetpedia, the Neo Anarchist Streetpedia,
Okay.
that will bridge some gaps. But honestly, there's nothing. Well, I should say, yes, there's a couple of things, but they've just been hinted at. There's nothing that's kind of like that you would point to and go, "Ooh, cool,
Right.
That's the thing." There's not a Stormfront.
Thanks for the
Look,
subscription,
that's-
Kazrakcom. Thank you.
Yes,
And-
Eldron. Johnny Spinrad is the new meta plot. Just him.
Just him. Well,
yeah, I
because
mean, like,
the
if
reason
you're
I
paying-
asked
if you're
that is
paying
because I
attention-
remember when 5th edition was coming out, 5th edition, I remember getting really excited about the Stormfront book. That really
Yeah.
got me kind of jazzed. So
Thanks for the sub,
So-
Kazric.
It's so Streetpedia does that same sort of thing. It kind of like it brings you up to date on where the edition is leaving off.
Mhm.
But there's
So-
no like main thing that's happening. Like
Okay.
yes, there's some stuff going on with
Um,
Ares. Yes, there's some stuff going on with Spinrad. Yes, there's some stuff going on with Terrors. But it's all kind of background and nothing's really taking center stage. And as far as I know, we don't have like one big meta plot thing that's going to carry over all
Right,
of 6.
right.
We haven't
Before
had that conversation.
Cliff keeps trying to say something, Mr. Johnson, before he
Yeah,
does, I
I-
want to say Random McNally in the chat room. I love your name.
Yes, I loved writing it on my. Anyways, patron subscriber. I love writing it on the.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson. You keep trying to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say that I believe there is something pretty significant in the works, though I don't think I'm allowed to talk anything specific about it yet. So
That's another good point.
I
I'm
haven't
asking these
heard
questions
the
that are
name of the project dropped, but there is. I certainly know that that Catalyst is absolutely planning on dropping some stuff to move the meta plot forward.
right.
So that's as much as I can say, I'm afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are here to talk about, dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that we were just brushing on, because we only were giving ourselves an hour last night, and we're giving us 2 more hours tonight. So there are some things that we could talk a little bit more about, give some more details. And I'm glad that we kind of gave ourselves a day, because I spent like 2 hours earlier responding to YouTube comments. I got a real good feel for what people are thinking and wondering. It's been all over our Discord, which, by the way, if you're listening and you aren't aware, we have a Shadowcasters Network Discord channel you could check out. The easy way to get there is to go to shadowcasters.network/Discord for the invite.
Yeah, I was on the Discord earlier chatting, asking people what they wanted to know in our conversation tonight. So that's the kind of thing we like to drop in there, and you know, the community leads the conversation.
Yeah. I don't get in there as much as I would like to lately, but today I was all up on it. So
hey, look, hey, Robert Volbrecht is in the chat, and he had quite a bit to do with the 6th edition book. So if you have questions that we can't immediately answer, looks like Bob's there.
Yeah, I bet you he'll field some questions and help us out.
And I'd much rather Bob tell us than us just randomly read it.
But let's
I haven't read the whole thing yet. I haven't given it like the full-on treatment yet.
Is there a place that you guys want to start to get the ball rolling and get people jazzed to ask us some questions?
Yes, I had some folks in the Discord ask a couple of things that I thought would be good to start with.
Okay.
Bamps is asking, is alchemy out? No, alchemy's not out. There is alchemy in the book. I didn't go into it a whole lot, but there is alchemy in the book. Levette Noir character generation method. I don't think it's spoiling anything to say that this is priority system. However, it is quite a bit different than the priority system before. I think it's much more balanced.
Yeah, there are definitely some differences. One of the neat things that jumped out at me was, and I don't hesitate to say anything because of like fear of not being allowed or anything, but I fear of like opening a Pandora's box and people getting the wrong impression here.
That's my fear too. Yeah. I just don't want to. I don't want to present something that's like as I understand it, and then be wrong, and people be held to that or judge it based on what I thought at the moment.
Right. So, but what I will say is, you know how you pick a meta type in Shadowrun 5th, and it kind of boosts your certain attributes. Like if you're a troll, it's going to boost your body and strength right from the get-go. In 6th edition, that doesn't happen, but different meta types, depending on the priority you take of a meta type, you get these extra special character gen resources you can use to improve specifically the attributes that are important to that meta type. Does that make sense?
In Shadowrun 5th edition, when you pick your meta type, you get a certain meta type and you get these special attribute points. And you can put them into your magic or resonance or your edge attribute. It's kind of the same in 6th, except for no matter what meta type you pick, you get the same amount of special points for the priority you take. So priority E, you might get, I want to say it's like 4 or 6 points, and priority A, it's a whole bunch of points.
Right.
That said, if you are a meta type that is not human, there are some attributes that have maximums that are higher than 6. And you are allowed to spend those special points on those attributes as well.
The cool thing about
like trolls could spend special attribute on body and strength.
Right, exactly. A dwarf might be able to put it on body, strength, or willpower. An elf could put the extra points into quickness or charisma. But the troll could decide to start out with a body of 1 if they really wanted to.
Right, and that's weird. That's what I was going to say, is that the thing I like about that, I do think that that's a little bit extra math, so to speak, that you have to do, and I don't know how I feel about that, but what the end result of you having a little bit more freedom with making how your troll, like, you don't have to have a jacked beefy troll. You could make a really scrawny troll if you wanted to. And I think that's cool. What I like
is that it all costs the same. You know what I mean? So like there's a balance there in that, like, you're not paying more to get an elf to 3 strength as you are a troll to strength, like 3 strength. If you get 3 strength, you have paid the same amount as everybody else to get to 3 strength, or to 6 strength, or to 7, or whatever. I I think it's a cool. You just don't get stuff for free, right? So like, there's not going to be any. I choose elves because I get 4, points for free in agility. Like that's just not there. You have to buy it up, just like the same as every other meta type.
Yeah, and the Event Noir asked if max edge is the same for all meta types, and it's humans. Humans are a little bit higher than others.
Max edge is higher for humans.
Yes.
Yeah, you have an edge. There's this edge system where you gain edge and spend edge over the course of actions in a combat round or in a conflict. But your edge attribute, in addition to some other stuff, it also kind of gives you a starting pool to work with. That essentially starts you off with a certain amount of edge. Anytime one of those conflict circumstances kick off, like the beginning of combat, you would get whatever your edge attribute is as a starting pool of edge.
Right.
And then you might get bonus edge if you have higher attack rating and better circumstances direct like that.
Right. I wanna talk about edge because I feel like that's one area that we mentioned last night that has caused a lot of confusion. People are like scared about this edge thing because one of the first things I get the sense of is that people keep saying over and over again, oh, now I'm just not going to get any edge, or my GM is going to have to award me edge more frequently. First of all, your GM is no longer going to be awarding you edge. I don't know if that's 100% true. Maybe they can, but that's not the way.
It's a dance. It's a negotiation, I think, between the players and the GM.
The way you gain edge...
Not always, though. There's explicit ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The way you gain edge... Oh, I think what Opti means by that is that the GM who is as the NPC, that you're dancing with that NPC to try to gain tactical advantage.
Right. Like if you can make the case that you have tactical advantage, then your GM should say, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And so, but I don't want people to be scared about that either. It's not necessarily up to you as the player to be convincing to your GM. There are clear mechanical things to point to. Like if you're in a dark alley and somebody shot out all the lights and it's a dark alley and you have low light on and your enemy does not, then you will get a point of edge for that because you can see better than them.
Whoa! Somebody said in the text, drain is no longer a thing.
Well, drain is definitely a thing. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure. You might be mistaking spell forces. Drain is definitely a thing. Drain works differently. It's calculated differently. I think it's actually easier and will be smoother. This
more
could
likely
be
to take some, I think.
This could be where the confusion is. I know in my complex action video I briefly touched on that, and one thing I said, which is true, is that you no longer roll to resist drain. You the amount of drain that you well no the amount of drain that you take is built into the spellcasting roll.
Yeah, and you resist with a dice pool based on willpower plus an attribute as determined by your tradition. So hermetics would be locked. I think shamans are charisma, but it might be intuition. I'm not sure.
Maybe
you get to resist drain with that dice pool.
Maybe I'm just confusing a difference that is brought out in the core rulebook rather than the quick start rules. So, but yeah, you do. The point is, you do take drain. You do have drain. There's a drain value for every spell.
Yes, and it is still resisted. Absolutely. I'm 100% certain about that detail.
Okay, good.
One of the other things that popped up as a question was the skill list. I don't know that we can just give away the skill list because that's getting dangerously close to just reading out of the book, which we're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
Basically, look at the skill groups in 5th edition, and that's pretty close to what the skill list is in 6th.
Way fewer
Not
skills.
exactly, but pretty close.
Yeah. Also, pre-gen characters. I didn't get a great look at them, but they seem to cover all the typical archetypes. I didn't do the math to find out if they were all made well. Let's see what else.
Gamers Tavern Show asked, Daryl asked, hard question. I know you can't speak to the design philosophy, but a controversy, specifically in discussions among the trans and disabled communities, is that the Cyberize eats your soul trope of Shadowrun with body modifications treated as unnatural. Does the new edition address this in any way that you've seen? It doesn't feel like it's treated any differently in what I've read so far.
From what I understand, anything that involves, a trans person doing what they need to do to make their transition is not going to cost a character. I think that was a call that was made.
Yeah, my understanding of the philosophy there is that anything that's cosmetic does not cost essence.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah. Which I think works, mechanically.
Were there cosmetic augmentations that cost essence in 5th?
I think when Chrome Flesh first came out, there was an essence cost to doing things that would essentially be required as part of a transition. And then when that was brought to the attention of Catalyst, they addressed that and said, "Okay, that's not the way it is. That doesn't cost you essence." They addressed essentially the mistake when it was pointed out to them, which is admirable, I think.
Right, for sure. But it also just doesn't make sense mechanically for
radio free supplies. I think.
What's his question?
Sorry, thank you. Can Edge be used in downtime activities? I want to say yes, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not entirely sure how it's addressed either. I could easily.
I know you can use it in non-combat ways, like Matrix. But
I could easily see the GM making a particular undertaking, calling that essentially the beginning of a sort of an encounter for the purposes of your edge pool starting or refreshing. But I'm not sure that's explicitly stated in the rulebook.
We should also say, before we get too far, we have not thoroughly read every single bit of the rulebook. We are not experts on it, and none of us wrote in it.
Right.
Just so you know, we're coming at this having just got the book.
I game mastered 2 sessions, one of which was with just the quick start stuff. So I'm getting a feel for it.
Nexai asks, are the standard tests and means of determining dice pools changed significantly? Opposed test, thresholds, extended tests. As far as I can see, that stuff works the exact same way. None of that has changed at all.
It's when you're rolling dice and
thresholds work pretty much the same,
Yeah,
as far as I can tell.
You're gonna know this system if you've played 5th edition. It's gonna feel comfortable. Yeah, and it's the dice system is the same. It's a threshold based dice pool system that is the same as it was in 5th edition. A lot of the differences are in the details. Where do your thresholds come from? No more limits, for example. The extra things that extra limit thing that was tacked on. There's just stuff like that, a lot of the details, but the core of the system is still the same. And when we talked to Jason Hardy, he very much said that was one of their design philosophies, was that they still wanted it to feel like the Shadowrun game people know.
Right.
So
my understanding is that like the crunchy bits, the additional adding of different guns and weapons and all that kind of different cool stuff, gear is going to continue. That all that stuff that you like about Shadowrun's not going away. It's just I think they seem to have taken all the stuff out that was just irritating to everybody, or at least maybe irritating or intimidating to some people.
How is accuracy to be handled? Weapons do not have accuracy anymore.
No, that's not true.
Is it not true?
It's factored into their attack rating,
right?
And
but
at
it's
various different ranges.
Yes. It's abstracted and factored into something called attack rating.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. There's just no
armor
weapon attribute called accuracy. Right.
Right. But
there are still some buffs. You still have an augmented maximum of 4 above your attribute, I believe, unless I'm mistaken about that. I'm not as 100%, but there are still drugs that you can take that give you boosts, and the addiction rules are, I think, they make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But you're right. You're right, Opti, not to want to just glaze past that attack rating thing. Attack rating is a big change with the way that works now. Weapons, the main thing you're going to be thinking about with your gun is what its attack rating is at different ranges, if you're thinking about that. But it's what its attack rating is. And because basically how a combat is going to work is you're going to have your attack rating on your weapon plus your agility. Correct me if I'm wrong about this. I'm known to get things wrong.
I'm pretty sure it's just the attack rating on the weapon. I don't think your agility factor.
For your dice roll?
Yeah.
For your dice roll, it's your skill plus your dice pool.
Oh, that's right. Attack rating
is
and
a number
defense
that you
rating.
compare to defense rating.
Attack
to
rating
figure out
and
who gets
defense.
edge.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's in case you didn't hear that because we were talking over each other, attack rating is used when compared to the target's defense rating in determining who has advantage in that situation, who gains. You can gain edge by having a much higher attack rating than the defender.
If you're like me, you're going to want to confuse attack rating with damage. I made that mistake a bunch of times when I was looking at it initially, but attack rating and defense rating seem to only have meaning in relationship to each other, as far as who gets the edge in that combat.
Right. And the mechanical thing behind attack rating again is that they abstracted a lot of those details out, as Opti was saying, and just all bundled it into this attack rating that tells you how effective this gun is. There are several guns that all look the same. They have the same damage, the same firing modes, same ammo capacity, but their attack ratings are different. And that just tells you how quote unquote effective of a weapon it is at those particular ranges.
Foolish Guac says any Technomancer info, especially differences from 5e. Did either of you look at Technomancers at all?
They're pretty similar. They operate about the same as they do in 5th edition, except with the necessary changes to the 6th edition Matrix rules. They have Matrix attributes that are generated by their mental attributes with the living persona. They can compile sprites. They still have complex forms that do fading, which is like still resisted, kind of like Drain. And they still seem to be pretty powerful. I haven't read over them in detail, but yeah, I think they're still going to be the irksome pain to the megacorps that they are in that and love from 5th.
Yep. El Dorino wants to know average weapon damage. I would say it ranges from 3 to 6, depending on the weapon.
Now, like a Panther cannon, I think is 6 damage, whereas most pistols are 3 or 4.
Yeah, and I don't remember. Mr. Johnson looked into the melee weapons a little bit more. I know like a knife was 1, but I think that was mitigated by also strength damage. No, not strength damage. I don't know, something. It had one asterisk, but I didn't really get it.
Yeah, most solid, serious weapon attacks are going to be 3 or 4 points. Anything less than that is a little wimpy. Anything more than that is, big gun kind of stuff.
Yeah, so Levent Noir in the chat room mentioned something. Going back to Edge for just a second, because I was confirming it in my notes before I wanted to answer this. He said, let's see, scrolling up. Okay, so you can get Edge from just having a really big gun rather than any skill component. Well, first of all, it's just to be pedantic. It's not really that it's a really big gun. It's that it's a really effective gun somehow. But yes, I don't think to answer your question, I don't think your skill level at firearms factors into whether or not you gain edge in that type of situation.
No, but it should be noted that if you have edge and you suck with a weapon and you're going against somebody with no edge who is good with that weapon, you're still going to lose. Edge is not the stupid, ridiculous, awesome thing that it used to be. You're not just going to auto win because you have an edge.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
The thing about edge is it's not representing it's representing all the other bits of advantage that you have in a combat situation, all the other cumulative things that have built up, and you use your skill to make the shot, right? But you have edge that you've built up through other means, having a more, advanced weapon, or, having height advantage, or, stuff like that, having kicked dirt in your opponent's face or something.
So TO222 asks about how the system is streamlined, requiring analysis of low light, that sort of. Essentially, in combat, the edge part is basically a 3-part process. First of all, you compare your attack rating of your attack to the defense rating of the defender. If one of those is 4 or more higher than the other, then that side gets an edge. Next, you take a look and see if there's any like specific environmental or situational advantage, like higher ground, or one of you has low light and the other one doesn't, or something like that. That's where the negotiation is. There, an edge might be awarded. Most of the time, you're going to skip past it. And then the other factor is you might have a specific quality or piece of gear or ability or magic spell or something going that would give you an edge in a certain circumstance. Like, I believe if you're a rigger that's jacked in, you would always get an edge when you do an action that involves driving.
No. Yeah.
Or if you're a decker in Hot Sim, I think you would always get an edge just because you're in Hot Sim and you've got a cyberjack.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you make. I can't remember who the person's name was that asked this question, but the point that you're making is, it seems like, how is the system actually streamlined if you're having to do all these calculations and everything? And that's actually one of my concerns right now. I haven't played it yet. I'm going to get to start playing it tomorrow. But I
would say my answer to that is, it seems like there's no more big bunch of situational modifiers. Let's see.
That's what I was
for this, and
yeah,
then
that's what I was going to say.
You have the flash pack that mitigates that, so it's -1, and now we have a net of X number of +4 dice. And go ahead, now roll your dice pool. No, all of that is like, no, okay, you get an edge.
Yeah, and I felt good that they're removing the modifiers, and my hope is that this edge calculation is gonna simplify that. It's just gonna make it's gonna be just faster than calculating all the modifiers. Also, another thing, even if it's not faster, even if it's the same, I feel like, I'm hoping that it's gonna feel better, because modifiers, one of the things I never liked about situational modifiers was that it was like a punishment system. It was like you're taking dice away from people, or you're hurting them somehow. Where edge is a much more positive approach, and it feels like I'm going to feel like, as a player, encouraged to do advantageous things for myself so that I can be rewarded with edge, so to speak. Like, I'm going to try to... And tactical maneuvering in combat was a thing that I never did in 5th edition. I made the joke in my video that, because that's what I always did, I made the joke that maybe I won't just be standing there in the middle of combat shooting people until they die. And just standing there. Or finding one piece of cover,
Did either of you come across, like, if your attack rating or defense rating is so much higher than the other person's, do you get more bonuses?
It's just 4. It's just +4.
If it's 4 or more, you get an edge.
Yeah.
Or if theirs is 4 or more. And yeah, the talk about armor is, okay, your attack rating, that comes from your weapon, or maybe a combination of attributes if you're making an unarmed. And your attack rating is a certain number based on that. And then the defense rating is typically, well, in combat, it's body plus a bonus from armor. And that's all armor does, is determine the defense rating for comparing whether who gets an edge or not in that roll. When it comes to soaking damage, you just roll your body. That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
There is no damage soak built into armor at all. And I looked at that, and I noticed, this seems like a big deal. So I asked Jason straight out, and he did say it in the interview with it, that yes, that is correct.
And that's a really big change, right? And so I have apprehension about it, like I'm sure plenty of people do, but right now I'm in a sort of wait and see mode. Like I want to get a chance to play it to see how it shakes out. Damage values seem to be lower.
A lot
So,
lower, yes.
yeah, so that could compensate for that. Levent Noir asked one more time about this, and I want to move on from Edge, or stop going back to Edge. He says, how does the game handle NPCs having advantages over PCs? They just get advantage and Edge the same way that we do, right? So that's all it is. It's a competition between you and the NPCs to see who can get the most Edge and spend it on the biggest things, you know? So...
Yeah, the other limiting thing is you can never have more than 7 Edge in your current pool of spendable, no matter what. And you can't gain more than 2 points of Edge over the course of a combat round ever, no matter what. It's not as big of a deal as it might seem because there's only one pass for a combat turn.
And I guess to put a bow on the Edge thing so we can really move on, one thing we have not done yet between last night and tonight at all is give examples of the ways you spend it. We just keep saying spend it, and people are only going to be able to think about how they've used Edge before. But for example, with 1 point of Edge, you could use a point of Edge to re-roll a single die, or you can use like 3 points of Edge to buy a hit. Things like that. And there's many more examples for each, from spending 1 to 5. Again, like Opti said, I don't feel comfortable like just telling you all of them and reading them out of the book here. But you know, those are some examples. There's all sorts of little tiny things you can use them on, and some big things when you're spending as much as 5. So.
Yeah, and I think I read that your defense rating is your body plus your armor.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you have a high body, like say you're a big troll or whatever, you know, you could probably get away with wearing less armor and have it not be as big of a deal.
Yeah, body is a lot more important in this edition than it was in.
You know what, Alanis Cyborg, I did remember something about goons. Right? Do we have?
Yeah, there is a grunts rule.
Oh, and I think I like
this. There are actually suggestions on how to group them together to speed things up, and I did use those rules in the actual play with the Shadowrun Origins recording. So if you want to hear those rules in action, that's a great place to hear it done. And we do also, go through uses of Edge in that, and there's some great examples. And Opti does use the 5-point Edge use that is kind of like. It kind of feels a little bit like a plot point in Anarchy, but it's not meant to be that super powerful. And
right.
I think the way we used it was really clever,
right?
By essentially making some of his decking actions a little bit more effective than they otherwise would have been. And I don't want to give anything away. It was really cool how he used it, and I thought it added to the game really well. I've enjoyed it a lot so far.
Now seems like a good time to remind anybody who's listening that tomorrow night. We will, first of all, we will be having, me and Mr. Johnson are going to be sitting down here on the stream with Jason Hardy. So a lot of these questions that we can't answer, that we just can't, he'll be here to answer those questions. But as soon as we're done with that, around 9:30 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be kicking off our 8-part 6th edition live actual play that we're going to be playing. Me and Opti are both going to be playing in that. Mr. Johnson's going to be GMing, and we're also going to have Austin from, I think he's the GM in Crit Squad, is that right? And Sarah Kraus, if you're familiar with her work over with I can never
Rem Alternis.
Yeah.
The movie company.
Yeah, and you can still burn Edge to survive. Someone was saying you couldn't do that. You still have an Edge attribute, which determines how much Edge pool you start an encounter with.
Ultimately, it feels like you're going to be spending and gaining Edge a lot. It's going to be going back and forth, and it's going to be good.
You can still do the Edge perma burn to lower your Edge attribute by 1 point to have your character not die when they otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for the bits, Tim Chandler. Thanks for cheering.
Eldrian, in the Shadowrun Origins actual play, we used the pre-gens. We renamed them so that we didn't just copy right out of the book, but yeah, they're the pre-gens.
We're creating
actual play tomorrow, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got my notes on a character right here. I just hit my microphone with it like a professional streamer. Anyway, let's move on from Edge.
Tables hold on. I'll get to a couple of these questions.
Okay.
Random tables. How lethal is it? I have no idea. Like we haven't been able to really play
We can only
too
guess
much
at this point,
to be
I
able
think.
to say.
It seems to me that you're more likely to take damage if you get hit, but you're not as likely to take as much damage in one hit.
Right.
But
That's yeah.
yeah, I've only played one session that had combat and 2 sessions altogether.
It's like we're going from oh, never mind. I can't remember video game names, so this joke is not going to work. Continue.
A Gamer's Tavern. How does decking work? In super short, it's like 5th edition decking, like taking some of the best of that and streamlining it, but still leaving some of the complicated bits in.
Exotic Teacup, thanks for the sub.
So I think better, but not super different.
It's much more easy to understand. That's for sure.
It's less complicated, easy to understand, but also I don't know. It feels a lot. It doesn't feel all that different to me from what I'm looking at. There's a lot of matrix actions.
So
I think there's some cool new ones like being able to set up a back door to sneak in to take more time to do a slower hack your way.
Right. So instead of marks, instead of marks, you can take like probe actions to make yourself a user or an administrator. That gives you the ability to do certain things. So they're like kind of perform the function of marks. But if you don't have time to wait around for that, you don't have to use them, and you can just brute force.
There are certain actions that require you to have admin level access, and that's kind of like having 3 marks, but you can kind of get it in one blow. There's the slow, sneaky way of doing a probe action and following that up with a backdoor entry later, which is more likely to succeed but takes more time and is slower and sneakier. And that's kind of like having legal access. Your Overwatch timer doesn't go up as fast, or you can just do a brute force that lets you just essentially blast your way in, get admin access, but it's illegal access. The alarms are going off, and your Overwatch score is going to go up like every turn by a big chunk.
One of the things that I think the GMs are going to like a lot is if you don't know something, you can simply say, is it legal or is it illegal? Right?
Yeah.
If it's legal, then it's electronics plus logic. If it's illegal, then it is cracking plus logic. There might be some like nuance there, right? In depending on the individual action, but like if you just need to make a decision on the fly, that's a super easy call for a GM to make. Is it illegal or is it not? 2 different things. Somebody asked if kill code factors into this. Yes, everything from kill code. Well, not everything from kill code, like not some of the crunch, but yes, like the grids. Like while grids still exist, there's no penalty for grid hopping. So that's cool. Any other thing in particular you talking about from kill code? And we can address that.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Overwatch score, yes, is still a thing. It seems one tiny difference is once you get converged on, it's immediate. Like there's nothing. It's just you're done. You're immediately bricked.
Yep. The thing is, there's still Overwatch is built up the same way, but now
there's no every 15 minutes like there is in 5th.
I guess, but it's like you're right. I didn't notice that, but it is every hit against you on an illegal test.
Yes.
And then every time you make use of a hacking program, and then I think every round that you have illegal access to something. So unless you do the backdoor thing, which kind of circumvents that and lets you take longer and do longer scale, sneaky stuff.
There are no streams, paragons, or tribes yet, or playable AI. That's usually saved for the Matrix book. Damage is calculated. I think it's almost the exact same, if I'm not mistaken. Because I made my Decker the other day, and
the condition monitors.
Yeah, I think I had exactly the same, like 10 boxes or whatever.
So how do people feel about the marks being gone? I've heard mixed feelings about that in the
only reason I can think of that people would like marks is because they got comfortable with them. Like nobody ever went like, oh, you know what, I love marks. Like I understand why you would be comfortable with them, but there's
it's
nothing
not like
great about them.
It's not like they're totally gone either, because it's it's like admin versus outsider versus user level is kind
Yeah.
of like Marx. It's
It
just
just
it's
makes
faster
more
way to
sense. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
the action
exactly.
economy is a bit faster, and I think that it also makes sense to have to take out those extra actions worth when you have a combat turn that doesn't have all these extra passes for someone who's in virtual reality.
Relative
It can
Depod says he's sad that limits are gone. I actually, to be honest, didn't mind limits. I didn't like the extra layer of remembering stuff. So I think like they're better gone because I don't. It's just extra stuff. I don't want to have to be
Like
bookkeeping.
if you were like me, you would just say, "I got this many hits," and if your GM was like on top of it, then it would say, "What's your limit?" Otherwise,
Yeah, I
nobody ever
constantly forgot
like
about it as a GM
yeah,
and a player.
you just forget about it.
well,
And
there's so many ways to get around them as well.
yeah,
And I
No,
don't think
there's no big matrix thing, by the way. Like nothing big happens to the matrix to change it. It just sort of evolves a little bit.
right. I guess you could say that what's her name, tighten the screws or something, but
Yeah, maybe like a software update or something. I don't know.
yeah, all the hosts got a firmware update.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's see. Let me talk about addiction for a minute while we wait for another question. I'm barely able to follow chat. I love that so many people are here talking to us. Addiction. If you guys have listened to me for any length of time talk about stuff, you know that addiction is my bugbear. Is that the right word? I can't stand the addiction rules in 5th edition. It's like they're ridiculous. And they're so much.
Are they ridiculous?
They're addictive, ridiculous. Well, it's funny. They're addicting list because basically one of the things I didn't like about them. I shouldn't rant about 5th edition addiction because we're talking about 6th edition addiction. But anyway, so addiction in 6th edition. That's a hard thing to say 3 times fast. Is basically you just have it, right, and you just have to take the drug once every interval amount of time, and it's based on your addiction level, the negative quality you have. So if you, for example, have an addiction level 3, you have to take that drug you're addicted to once a day. And if you don't, you go into withdrawal, and then withdrawal has negative effects on you, like dice pool penalties, and makes it so you can't spend edge if you're in withdrawal. So you need to take that hit for that interval, or you're having a bad day. And that's it. Done.
Yeah.
So the obvious first question that people might have is, how do you become addicted? And it explicitly states that is not something that they've introduced yet. Right now, you just have the negative quality of addiction, and that's it. So it's massively simplified from the get-go start here. Now, I don't know if they held off on putting how you become addicted because they haven't worked it out yet, or if it's just... I know that Jason Hardy, when he talked to us during that interview, Mr. Johnson, said that there was a big push. They wanted this book to be like almost half as long as the SR5 core rule book. So that just may have been one of the things that they left out to bring back in a future book. I don't know.
I think a game master should feel free to give out the addiction quality if they feel like it is warranted.
Well, for sure. If you've got someone who's popping there are drawbacks to all the drugs too. I think when you take it. I didn't look too deep at that, so it's not like Levent Noir is saying it. I keep talking about Levent Noir tonight. Hey, glad to have you here, buddy. He said everyone should be doing lots of drugs. Drugs are future candy. I think there might be a downside to when you take the drug too, but definitely take drugs.
Somebody was asking about non-riggers being able to access the matrix. Yes.
Non-deckers, you mean?
What did I say?
Riggers.
Yeah, non-deckers. Sorry. You can, but a cyber deck actually gives you half of your matrix attributes. So, without a cyber deck, you don't have. Maybe help me. You don't have an attack or defense rating.
Or attack or a sleaze. It's
Right.
attack, sleaze, data processing, and firewall, just like in 5th edition. and they perform somewhat similar functions, though they're not limits anymore. Your attack and defense rating for the purpose of doing like opposing matrix actions is based on these attributes, accommodations of. And an attack and a sleaze, nobody has that unless they're a technomancer or if they have a cyber.
A cyberjack you cut off there, and he said a cyberjack.
Cyber deck.
Oh, a cyber deck.
A cyber deck. A cyberjack is a. Okay, let me talk about comlinks first. A comlink, you still have those, and they can provide a data processing and a firewall attribute with their 2 attributes. They're usually pretty low, like the highest is like 3 and 1. But you can combine your cyber deck and your comlink attributes to get your total attack and to your array of matrix attributes. But a decker is going to want something called a cyberjack, which that gives you a boost to your initiative and your minor actions in the matrix, and it also gives you your data processing and firewall ratings, which have much higher potential than you're going to get from any comlink.
It's
like
it's
a
part of
character
how
could get like a 9 and an 8 if they put a lot of resources into it, but they're also pretty essence heavy.
Right. It's part of how they made Cyberdecks less expensive. Also, Cyberjack is a dumb name.
So a decker is going to want a cyberjack and a cyber deck. So a cyberjack is like an amped up data jack that they have to, yank out more chunks of your brain to make room for it.
Right.
So like the
maxed out,
the maxed out ones are like I think 3 essence cost. So even the lower ones are 1 essence or more. So deckers are going to probably be losing bigger chunks of their brain. But yeah, the overall monetary cost is a bit lower. I was toying around with a decker build, and I put resources A, and I was able to buy the highest grade cyberjack in the book and the second highest grade cyber deck in the book without having to go in debt.
You were cyberjacked.
Yep.
It gives you I know one of the things I like about the separation between the cyberdeck and the cyberjack is it gives you a little bit more ability from the get-go to customize a little bit more what your attributes are going to be.
One of the things I didn't understand as I was reading through is it seemed to indicate, and maybe Rob can help us out, it seemed to indicate that once you had a cyberjack and a cyberdeck, you could switch up the matrix attributes between them. I wonder if that was intended, or you can only switch the attributes. You know what I mean? Like you could, if it's your cyber deck, you could only switch your sleaze and your attack.
Yeah, I think what you're getting is your cyber deck gives you 2 stats. They could be attack or sleaze, and then your cyberjack gives you 2 numbers as well, but you could swap between data processing and firewall. When you put those together, can I swap them together and take my 9 from my cyberjack and put it in my attack rating, which would otherwise come from my cyber deck? Or do I have to keep those 2 things with each other?
It didn't seem clear to me on that point.
Also, yes, I forgot. Bob Volbrecht is in the chat, and he wrote like all the Matrix stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize. There's nothing that's going to stop me from laughing every time I say Cyberjack when I'm playing my decker.
I don't know. I think it sounds cool to me.
It's just me. I get it. It's just me.
Picturing the Matrix film with you have this huge thing like built into your head now. It's not just a little data jack, which data jack still is.
He says no, you can switch the attributes on the 2 stats on that device.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I didn't think it was.
Yeah, I didn't see it unpacked in that way, but I'm glad for it. That makes sense.
Is essence still a thing? Yes. Does it affect social stuff?
I don't know.
Well, what social stuff did it affect before? It affected your social limit, and there's no more limits.
I wonder if it factors into the social edge-based considerations, because there's a whole list of where who would get edge versus another based on different social circumstances. So I think it mostly plays into healing tests and health-based spell, and also how you roleplay your character, of course.
Yeah, I'm trying to look to see if I can figure that out. You guys keep talking. I'll look for how essence affects things.
Okay, somebody else had another question about do you still have where you take stun damage if your armor rating is higher than the damage value? No. You take the damage type based on the attacks. If you have, big old body armor, but I'm going to shoot you with a weapon that does physical, even though it's only like 3 points normally. If I manage to, hit you enough to where you take a point or two of damage, it's going to be physical damage.
Yep.
It would only be stun damage if I'm going to be nice and stick gel rounds or stick and shock or something.
Yeah, apparently essence or lack thereof is only there to be a limiter to how you interact with magic.
Oh, I think someone's pointing. Someone says, "I look like a post-apocalyptic rod slasher breastlaw," a gaming journalist. Exactly, but I think you might be talking about. I'm wearing a Trolling Thunder T-shirt over a thermal shirt because it's cold here, which is bullshit.
Yeah,
but it is.
It was in the
Almond Chick. I think that a pure mage or adept decker is not going to be as viable. That's my guess, because cyberjacks do seem kind of necessary. Hungry. I think, yeah, and they are essence hungry.
Yeah, it's you can get away with a lower grade cyberjack though, and in an expensive cyber deck and still do pretty awesome stuff. So, but you would be eating away. Either way, you're going to lose a point of magic anyway. So it's just going to eat up a whole point for your cyberjack, and you can start with some things as a delta grade as starting characters now. That's not limited anymore.
Eldraine,
except as far as availability total.
Asked what the base stats like body and nat are they still the same? Yes, they're still all the same.
And so one of the big deal stuff that I noticed in character creation is, as far as availability goes, you're only limited to a max availability number if it's an illegal item, which certain things are marked as illegal, like missiles and rocket launchers and stuff, but you're also only capped out at availability 6, and like almost nothing goes up to availability 6 or higher. I mean, like you can have a Panther cannon as a starting character, or a missile launcher, or most cyberware adding Delta grade adds to the availability, but if it isn't already illegal, you can get like a Delta grade set of wire if you can afford it.
Yeah. And Jason Hardy in our interview said that was intentional. They felt like it sucked to have all this stuff in the core book, and you can ogle at it, but you can't get it when you make your character, and they didn't like that feeling, so they wanted to fix it.
Also, it doesn't look like Trodes give you any matrix attributes. So unless you have a cyber deck and a cyberjack, it doesn't look like you're going to be much of a decker.
Yeah, Comlinks can give you some, but yeah, like I said, the highest grade Comlink just gives you crappy stats for your data processing and
right.
I didn't notice really anything significant about changing Technomancers. They seemed pretty close. I think any significant changes with Technomancers are mainly just significant changes with how the Matrix rules.
Master slave networks are effectively gone. Bob says they wanted to keep it simple. That's one of the things that I feel about the decking. It feels like you want to do the thing and you're just gonna do it. Like I want to hack this camera. Well, then do it. It's not going to be like, oh, how many marks do I need? Well, let me get that mark, and then after I've gotten the mark, did it flow properly through the master slave network? Then, there's none of that. I made the joke in my video that like by the time you figure all that stuff out and you get ready to do the thing, combat's over and you're not needed anymore. And that won't happen, I think, anymore. I think that's going to be cool.
As far as what stuck out in the gear section, everything looked kind of
the same
vanilla to me.
Yeah. What stuck out to me is that you can have almost anything in the gear section.
It's a trade-off. Like if you want a Fairlight Excalibur, you can have one.
Well, that is an example that you can't have, but so I don't want to confuse people. Is it really? That is one piece of gear that is availability higher than 6.
Is it illegal?
And it is illegal, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, you can
Panther
There's
Cannon's a
still-
good example.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get that at character generation. You can't in 5th.
You're still going to pay for this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like you're getting it for free. There's something else you're not getting.
Right, and I like that they describe that availability in the game, like while you're actually playing too, is more of an indicator for the GM to say how relatively easy it is going to be to find that thing if somebody's looking for it. It doesn't have many strong like mechanical tie-ins like it does in 5th. You know, like the availability has distinct mechanical purpose in 5th.
I'm not sure that it points this out in the book anywhere, but I think it's also a useful thing for a game master to use to eyeball something about whether or not they should be, if any locals should be concerned about seeing this thing being carried around in their area. So something higher availability and illegal is definitely going to be an immediate red flag to any cops in any relatively safe part of town.
Right.
Something lower availability or legal might not bother them as much until they try to go into a building that has higher security.
Oz, I don't think we can answer that question about whether or not you can start with hardened mil-spec because I don't think I saw it in the armor. So
I didn't see any hardened armor in the book.
Yeah.
So
They did talk about hardened armor. I don't remember if it was on a particular item though.
I think it's in the range of critter powers.
That could be. Also, one of the worst things about this book, like a huge complaint I have, is that there is no Raven mentor spirit, which just strikes me as
that was a kick to the
insane.
groin just for you. That's what they were doing.
Right? Like I feel like whoever decided not to include them was just like, you know what? Screw
Let's figure this
Opti.
out. Do you have any enemies, Opti?
I have plenty. Yes. I don't know how many of them worked on this book, but I do have plenty.
Something that I'm super excited about that is happening in this edition, and it was I got my first look at it in the quick start rules when they talk about elemental damage in the quick start rules, but it gets fleshed out in the core rule book. But in the quick start rules, they talk about elemental damage, and what was cool about it was that it was much more simplified, and each different type of elemental effect seemed to have a unique and useful effect that felt like there was a clear purpose to each one. Like fire damage, feels like that's how you. It's almost like that each one of them had a clear like debuff. That's why you're using it. You're trying to debuff your enemies, right? You're trying to put an effect on them. Fire damage gave them like periodic damage over time. Ice or cold damage, its purpose was to I think it damaged armor, and also reduced initiative, dropped people down in initiative. There was electric damage, which made you actually move more slowly. So if you're trying to outrun them, stuff like that, and that gets fleshed out in the full rules. There's a whole status effect listing, and each one, and Jason Hardy again was telling us this in the interview, that the person who wrote those status effects, they came up with the whole system with that explicit idea in mind. So I think it really comes through that they were like, let's come up with a series of status effects that you can almost like video game style, you can apply to your enemy to give a clear, distinct, and useful effect. And it feels like I'm actually going to care about things like cold damage and stuff like that now, and I'm actually really interested with that, in that.
Apparently, spirits do have force still, so you don't use force for
there's still
for
force
spells, but you use force for spirits.
And foci as well have force.
What's the purpose of
just
the
not
force in
spells.
those things? Is it just an indicator of how powerful it is?
Yeah, for force, it's how much of an effect it does. The foci seem to more or less do the same thing that they did in the last edition. They're almost exactly the same as far as I can tell. Like a centering focus would give you additional dice to resist drain when you use your centering metamagic ability.
I can see why force would be left in for those things though, because it seems like it's just serving the purpose of having like a device rating. You know?
For spirits, it determines their range of attributes as well as how difficult they are to summon and control.
Summoning seems, I'm looking at first glance here, seems to be pretty much the same.
There's some big changes to summoning, but I haven't really read into it deeply enough to be able to confirm them. It looks like you might be able to summon more spirits at once than one, which has been the typical limit.
Unfortunately, there's been a lot of questions about adepts. Rallin R is asking about it. Like, will pure adepts be good, or will burnout adepts not be the best build? I don't know. I've never known what the difficulty with adepts was. I've never played much of an adept, and I honestly haven't looked much at the magic. So,
adepts seem pretty cool. Most of the abilities in the core book seem to be focused on the physical adept side of things. That said, I mean, there's a lot of content out from 5th edition that if you talk to your GM, it wouldn't be that difficult to adapt it when the time comes.
yeah.
But yeah, adepts are represented, and they are still pretty cool. Burnout adepts are certainly going to suffer because they get few power points, and that fragging hurts if you're an adept. You don't want to lose those points. I think it hurts an adept to lose a point of essence more than it hurts a spellcaster.
So I'm looking at Spirit of Beast, for example, and I do not see any sort of armor that they would have that would make them not hurtable. They're like
have
no immunity.
It's just like it was in the 5th edition book that totally threw me off back then. They have the materialization power, and the materialization power says that they have immunity to normal weapons.
Oh,
So
okay.
It's not as clear in there, and that works kind of similarly, though the mechanics of it are a little bit different because so are the damage points. But yeah, if your damage rating, if your modified damage rating isn't high enough, you don't hurt.
So yeah, it looks like it applies immunity to normal weapons. Let's see if. Well, it doesn't really specify. Enhanced resistance. So it's okay. So it's basically the same as 5th. It has hardened armor with a rating equal to its essence against whatever that is. Did somebody say that you could attack spirits somehow?
Same ways as before, as far as I could tell. I mean, if they're physically materialized, they're resistant to physical attacks that aren't magical. And if they're astral, you can hit them with astral-based attacks.
Yeah. So it looks like it's basically the same. I don't see any way for like a normal attack that's not magical to affect spirits in any way. I know that makes some of you sad.
Let's see.
Why are we proud about this?
Why are we proud about?
We don't have anything to be proud about. We didn't have anything to do with it.
We're proud that we got to make the big announcement. That's pretty awesome.
If we're proud about anything, that's what it is. But we didn't have anything to do with writing any of the rules. So
I'm excited about this.
Define normal
system.
weapons.
I'm pretty happy.
Anything that's not magical in nature. I thought I just read that.
Yeah, so like a weapon focus would be magical, or like an attack that would be a lightning bolt or a mana bolt, that would be a magical. If you had killing hands as an adept, that would be a magical attack.
Okay, so every attack that's not magical in nature, meaning weapons, foci, spells, adept, or critter powers. Anything that's not one of those things. Also, if a critter has an allergy or a vulnerability, then that immunity doesn't apply to that particular thing.
Sorry, I'm reading the chat, and you guys must be also reading stuff.
I've been looking over the book actually. Well,
yeah, why is that
here.
the case? I don't know. Why is what the case? Somebody's asking me a question. I don't know what the question is. Do we know if the amount of damage you need to get through their armor is massively less than 5e? I don't know that.
Um,
I'd have
you
to
don't need damage to
read it.
get through their armor necessarily. The armor rating only factors into whether or not the person gets an edge or not when they attack. When they hit you, you roll your body against the base damage of the weapon plus any net hits. Your armor doesn't help you with that at all at that point. The armor only factors
Yep.
in with the edge. So
Exactly.
it's body, number of dice, the number of hits that you get on that roll is the amount of damage you soak. The rest you just take.
Yep.
It's physical
It's
or
very
stun based on the attack, not based on whether or not your armor is high.
it's quite different than how 5e works, and that's why I've been saying like I don't feel comfortable saying anything about how it's going to work out until I actually do it. So probably Mr. Johnson's the most qualified of all of us to talk about how it feels because he's actually played with it a little bit, but I haven't. I'll get a lot of opportunity because my character in our actual play we're launching tomorrow night is the weapons specialist. So
Yeah. So somebody's asking about hardened armor. So yeah, hardened armor. If your attack is less than the hardened armor rating, then the attack does no damage. But I mean, if you're hitting a spirit with a pretty solid damage attack, I think you have a much better chance in 6th edition than you did in 5th edition. Since they're not having to resist at all with that armor rating. It's just damage rating or defense rating versus attack rating.
Yeah,
So you might not get an edge or whatever, but
essentially a spirit, it looks like a spirit's going to have their force in auto hits and any damage soak roll. Force 6 spirit is going to be really hard to hurt considering, your typical assault rifle is going to do 3 or 4 points of damage plus net. And it still gets to roll its body to soak the extra damage on top of it.
yeah, for sure.
Spirit Drain, I think it worked basically the same. You take the number of not net hits, but the number of hits that the spirit got against you.
Times 2, I think, just like in
No,
fifth
it
edition.
the spirit gets its force times 2 to roll against you, and then the hits is what you take as drain.
Oh, right. Okay, on the summoning roll, it's your dice pool against force times 2 instead of...
Yeah.
But it's only equal to hits as the drain.
So
not
if you
double the hits.
summon, a force 12 spirit, you're going to be, rolling. It's going to be rolling 24 dice, and you're going to be taking all that as drain. So I don't know. I don't know how that'll work out. This is like that. We haven't played this. We can't vouch for it.
Yep.
We're not saying it's good. We're just giving you the answers that we have.
Yeah, don't misinterpret. We're not defending either. We're just letting you know what we know. And sometimes, and in a lot of these cases, it's not a lot. So
I will say that I mostly like what I see, and I've had fun so far, and I'm excited about playing.
a lot of what we're doing right now is we're trying to take advantage of our position right now is to let you to tell you things that you can't know until at least June. So
Oh yeah, Trolling Stones. I had nothing to do with this book, just so you know. Like I wasn't on it. I didn't see it. I got it the same time that Bobby did.
yeah, right.
I had nothing to do with it.
Right.
Yeah, I got a peek at the very early playtest documents, and then not long after that, I decided I don't want to see anymore because when it's finished, then I'm going to be confused about what rules worked and stayed and which ones changed. So I just sort of, I sort of did my best to turn off my mind towards that until it was done, which was really hard to do. I was really nervous to see how it was going to turn.
I should clarify because my name is in the book as a developer for the game. So I did give an awful lot of feedback in the very, very early stages to the playtests that we were given. And apparently some of that made it into the core rulebook, but I wasn't there to make sure it was implemented evenly or anything. In fact, I haven't really even seen what exactly, if anything, that they took.
Yeah,
from
basically
my
like a
thing,
long time ago.
other than I got my name in there, so
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why.
Yeah, like a long time ago, we got a chance to playtest like a super early version of it, and we had a lot of things to say, and then that was the last we heard about anything.
We didn't like it, to be frank.
Yeah.
I don't know, can we say that? Like,
Yeah,
we
we had
playtested it, we were like,
we gave
geez, this is
a lot of criticism.
I really didn't like it. Honestly, when my first look at it was like, oh my gosh, I
think
I'm
of
really nervous
everyone.
about this.
This is the funny thing. I think of everyone. Didn't I say like to everyone, guys, calm down. This is actually pretty good.
Yeah, you were the nicest towards it, and I think like I was maybe the most critical.
Yeah.
Oz was insanely critical. And instead of being critical about it, I just wrote up a big document and said, "Can we please do something like this instead?"
That's
and then
the point
I didn't hear anything back until this. So
yeah.
So, but anything that people have complained about so far was not something I suggested. so I thankfully can separate myself from those things.
Yeah.
I don't have any idea about the feel of Astral and Matrix combat. I can't.
It seems pretty similar as far as I can tell, but yeah, I haven't played it yet.
If you want to, I'm going to keep plugging this every chance I get. If you want to get a feel for it, then you should show up to our playthrough of the live actual play that we're starting tomorrow night. And it's going to be on Thursdays of some kind, every other Thursday, and then we'll switch in Thursday. It'll be on the calendar. And if you don't catch it there, it'll be on YouTube. But you should show up live because that's the best time.
Lannis Cyborg, is there noise with devices?
There is noise.
From what I can tell, I see no sign of background count.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see background count either, which doesn't surprise me because it wasn't in the core rulebook last time either. But the noise is different this time. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think I read that if the noise of where you're at or the noise that's affecting you is greater than your device rating, you just can't use that device.
I think that's how it was in 5th, or at least that's all how
Is
I've
it really?
always...
Okay, maybe I just didn't use that rule.
Yeah, that's how I've always used it, but maybe I was just interpolating things, or I'm not sure if I'm using the right word for that. I'm definitely not using the word.
Yeah, if the noise is greater than the device rating, it cannot access the matrix.
How are we going to balance out mages? Well, it's not us guys because we're not making the game, but it looks like mages are balanced out in the game, but it's too early for me to tell.
Yeah.
What's BCG?
Better call
God?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I wrote some notes about stuff that I was hearing in the community that we can talk about a little bit while we wait for good questions. One of the things I heard a lot of people saying, and I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are on this, is a lot of people saying, and I want to hear what the chat room has to say about this as well. Like, do you guys feel the same way? A lot of people I hear saying that it feels that it's too soon to be having a new edition. And while I think we've all talked about how, like, technically by the numbers, it's not too soon, but I think I understand. Like, I can understand if people feel like it's too soon. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are saying they're still like just a few weeks ago or like a month or two ago, they've been releasing 5th edition books, and now they're announcing a 6th edition. It feels like, oh gosh, let me catch my breath with 5th edition. Do you guys feel that way?
It feels about right to me, but it does feel kind of sudden in the sense that, like, I wish there was more of a public playtest period where more people got to see it in the process of development. But that's a choice that is very risky, as we've seen with how Paizo has done it with Pathfinder. They've drawn a lot of negative attention as people latch on to things that are still in process that they don't like. And I think I myself can look back to having seen the playtest document and not liking it so much versus seeing the more or less end result and actually finding that I enjoy it quite a lot. I can certainly I certainly can't say that that's the wrong call. It just feels like I kind of wish the community, like more of the community, was invited to be part of the playtesting.
Yeah.
I'm looking here. It looks like the core rulebook for 5th was released in June or July of 2013, so it's been 6 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has.
Which is honestly average for a Shadowrun edition release.
And when I've said that, the rebuttal has always been, but they're like still giving us 5th edition books, and now
that happened like we were still getting 4th edition books even after 5th edition came out.
And that's a fair thing to say, like that historically it's the same, but does that mean that it's
Oh, I don't know.
You know,
I don't know if that's an excuse.
Right.
I don't think it's ever not happened.
Right.
So
I get what you're saying. Yeah. Some people saying odds are terrible and great. I've been expecting a new edition for like 2 years, so good time for it. We've got
DL Franco, public playtests. I agree. I am a huge fan. You know what I think, and they don't ask me. They particularly don't ask me, but like I think that we should release the PDFs and then get public feedback on those, and then like have those be a sort of like soft playtest, and then once we kind of get all the good feedback from the PDF release, I would love to go back and change it before the print release. That
Right.
feels like a good way to do it to me. But
or even if you're worried about certain things, like you want to give people to reason to buy this or that, you could release the rules in PDF form without all the like fancy art,
without all the fluff and stuff too. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good way to do it.
Yeah, without the
Man,
fluff.
that's
Exactly.
a good idea, Bobby.
Yeah.
Just release the crunch of something, like not formatted or anything like that. No, that would be stupid, wouldn't it?
Well,
I don't know. You want to get what you pay for.
There
but,
are
like,
there are other games that I do that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, so maybe this is not the right thing to say, but I'm sure I'm positive I've seen that before. Another game that says, "Here's the rules," but with no context. Play with them, do combat, and give us feedback.
Shadowrun SOD, that would be amazing. I would love it if they did some sort of like an open gaming license as well that allowed third parties to make their own Shadowrun products under an open gaming license.
Man, wouldn't that be great? We could make so much stuff.
Yeah, it did work out for me. Like the times that I've gone to some of the fans and got them NDA'd and worked with them a little bit. Like I've had really good.
Well, that's just it, right? Like this community
experiences that way.
This is a tabletop RPG community that I'm most familiar with, but so I can't speak for this community uniquely, but I do know that this community very much cares about this game and very much has thoughts and opinions and does a lot of the grunt work of analysis and digging through and testing that sometimes it's just cost money to do internally. So
and apropos of nothing, we've been on for about an hour. Do we have an idea of when we're going to stop this, Bobby? We're just going to keep going.
40 minutes.
Okay. So let me just pause here and just say, like, there's a lot of really intense negative feelings out there, and probably for good reason. Some of you feel like you have put a lot of your heart and soul into Shadowrun, and you feel like that respect has not been returned. Whether that's true or not, and I don't doubt that it is for many of us, but just keep in mind that if you don't deal healthily with your anger, then you start to become an angry person. And if you love something, don't let that love become angry and anger, and just stay in that place all the time, because that's what the internet tends to do. And so we've struggled back and forth with the things that we don't like, but I think we have found that like it is an altogether healthier proposition to focus on what you do like and focus on what brings you joy, as opposed to just simply throwing your hands up and complaining with everybody else in an echo chamber. So yes, a lot of us really do share a lot of your concerns. We just haven't found that it's extraordinarily helpful or healthy for us to only dwell in that place. So please don't think that, again, we're not shills. We're not here to just boost Catalyst up for no reason. We have those same things. We've just made the conscious choice to still enjoy our hobby and to have fun with our friends while doing it. We think that the internet's full of plenty of anger and vitriol, and if we can be that place that's on the other side of that is providing a safe space for you to enjoy what you want to enjoy, that's fine. You can be honest, but don't just dwell in that angry place. So there's my PSA. This is why we're choosing to be positive over negative.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, to me, it doesn't even make sense to be negative at this point either. Like we don't know yet. We have to play it. We have to get our hands on it. We have to feel it through. We have, it's starting to sound like a R&B song. But we don't know what it's gonna. We gotta love it. But we gotta
sing it, Bobby.
We don't know yet, so we're reserving a lot of judgment, and we have a lot of concerns, like Opti said, and we're not shy about those concerns. At least I'm not. But I'm not gonna start throwing hate around because I don't know if those concerns are warranted yet. So let's see.
We're all good. We just you know what, guys? We just want to love. We just want to love you. We just want to love Shadowrun. Sometimes it's hard, but
Shadowrun Bard. Yes, I love that.
Yes. I would love a Bard class. Removing mod. So another thing I've heard.
Wait, time out. We do have a Bard class. We have rockers, right?
That's
true.
that's
what it is. Well, we don't really have.
It's not a class.
Shadowrun. Not really an archetype.
Do you even Shadowrun, bro? We don't have classes.
Hey, whatever. In Anarchy,
we have no class here.
In Anarchy, like we threw a couple rockers in there.
Mm-hmm.
Archetype rockers. Not classes.
Another thing I've heard.
Like
somebody's gonna take that out of context and be like, "I knew it! Opti's trying to make Shadowrun into D&D."
Another thing I've heard people complaining about. Not complaining. I'm sorry. That sounds. There's a connotation.
People being passionately negative about.
Is that concerned about is that removing modifiers, which is I like, but some people have been saying removing modifiers is taking an important tool away from GMs.
They're not removing it; they're replacing it with the edge system.
Right. I feel like because I hadn't thought about it that way before until I started hearing people talk about that. And yeah, I understand what they're saying. Like modifiers are a way for GMs to say, okay, here's the situation you're in. Oh, we're going to make this difficult. There's going to be no lights. You're going to have a visibility modifier there. It's going to be raining really hard, and the ground's going to, so here's all your modifiers for that. But they kind of still exist, like Mr. Johnson is saying.
There also are situational dice pool modifiers that do come into play based on gear choices in some cases, but also circumstances when it's as far as I can tell, when it's not an opposed test.
That actually annoyed me, though, a little bit, and I'll say why in just a second.
I kind of wish it was more consistent. They use the edge system for everything.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Is I was like, I wrote.
But it also makes sense.
In my quick read through of the notes, I wrote a note that said, "So, are you getting rid of the modifiers or not?" Make up your mind. But
from what I can tell, there won't be modifiers in any sort of opposed contest, but there will be modifiers when there's not this opposed contest, but the players are just going up against the threshold.
And certain gear also gives edge and other things too, right? So it's not just you compare your edge and that's the only way you get edge. Like there's all sorts of kind of cool interactions. I don't know how cool they are, but they're different.
Qualities too.
Yeah, qualities and gear and that kind of stuff. Like they do things more than just give you like +1 this. And that's kind of cool. I don't know how well they're implemented yet. But like my initial read through is like, oh wow, so qualities aren't just +2 to agility. Like it's actually like they do things negative and positive. I don't know. It's interesting. If nothing else.
So like Levent Noir saying negative modifiers applied to the players have a strong psychological impact to communicate to the players what's going on, and I get that. I really do.
So the GM saying you're in a bad spot, and I'm going to give your opponent an edge.
But if I'm to play devil's advocate or take Levent Noir's side here. Like it is a strong message to say it's really dark here and it's raining, and now everything you do is going to have three less dice. I get that. That's true. My hope.
There's nothing to say you can't still do that. You just raise the threshold. Like that's how you would handle that.
If it's an opposed test, though, like your perception versus their stealth, or if you're doing an attack and then there's those visual modifiers involved, though, then you wouldn't pile dice pool modifiers on top of the edge.
Yeah. Sure.
But
yeah,
also you kind of tease out a reason to get rid of the modifiers, right? Like environmental modifiers, because if it's raining and it's dark, well, presumably everyone is now getting, even your opponents, everyone that's there now has this minus whatever modifier, and just your gear or whatever is gonna like nullify that in some way. So why not just have, you know, I feel like what it's hopefully going to do is that it's gonna put the onus on the players to think more about how they can outmaneuver people, and because that is something I've always thought was lacking, and that's what I'm waiting for to see if this is going to help. Is that now you're going to be thinking, what is the environmental situation, and how can I better improve my place in it to get an advantage over my opponent. So time will tell whether that feels better or worse than 5th edition, but I'm hopeful. It's different. I'm excited about something different, at least.
And it certainly seems to me to be a step a little ways back away from the simulationist end of the spectrum, a little bit more towards abstracting some things.
Yeah.
Because the edge you get for, like, you know, having low light vision when everyone else is in the dark, you could spend a couple of combat turns later to give you extra dice to, you know, help bolster your ability to help, you know, tell your friends it's time to get going and do a leadership test to give them a boost. Even though ultimately, like, your, you know, how dark it is shouldn't affect that. It does ultimately mathematically play in. So in that sense, you have some things happen that might not make direct narrative sense. And so you have to accept that it's more abstracted rather than trying to simulate an exact, this happens in reality and therefore this exact result must occur, like the laws of nature.
Alanis the Cyborg asks, will the system punish pink Mohawk players? I don't think so.
I think the opposite, actually.
Yeah, I think it's going to encourage that because, again, you don't have to worry about modifiers. Now if you just want to go pink Mohawk, just don't worry about gaining advantage. Just jump right in and do it. Like, you don't have to do the math before you do it of figuring out what's going on. You just do it. You know, I think it feels like it's going to be faster. It'll be easier to make it faster.
I think Garamanje's observation was really on point when we played the session for the Shadowrun Origins group doing the quick start rules, which you can, of course, download now from the Shadowrun Origins actual play podcast. His observation was that it felt very much like old school Shadowrun, but still also felt like kind of a new modern style RPG. And that was really on point. I really felt, in many ways, it felt a lot like it had the magic feel of that sort of early edition Shadowrun.
Markonovich in the chat, I believe, was a playtester. He's saying that rigging actually does have modifiers. So I don't know if that's indicative of other places that we just haven't seen that have
so
modifiers.
It's kind of like, yes, and that's another one of my problems, like make up your mind, I guess. Rigging does have modifiers in that I have some rigging notes, so I'm looking through it real fast, but
the Shadowcasters are going to be playing on Twitch starting tomorrow night for the chat.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Markonovich was a proofreader. What else? There's another. Misfortune, is there any chance you can give us play examples, like a typical dice throw?
Before you answer that, yes. Okay, so your speed interval is something when you're driving, and a vehicle has a speed interval, and it's kind of a measure of how difficult the car is to handle at high speeds. So, like, kind of the faster you're going, the less dice or rather, the faster you're going, the more of a negative dice pool modifier you'll have on handling tests for the vehicle. So that is absolutely a modifier. Thanks for Beta Cav for the sub.
Let me see if I can pull up an example here of combat. I'm not going to read out of the book, but maybe we can get something that might help to kind of understand.
All right. Somebody said a question about the rules and the archetypes. What is that question? I think we might have.
The rules and the archetypes. I'm not sure what you're asking. I didn't see that question, so I don't have context.
Oh, Commander Dunsale. Yeah, we've been pretty focused on mechanics, I think. There's certainly going to be some story stuff going on. The rules, I mean, the book does introduce the setting very. I think they got some practice on that with how it was presented in Anarchy. It helps to get people into the setting, which the way it seems to be presented seems to have a lot of attitude. I guess it kind of goes with the neon pink and the
the core rulebook is really not the place for much crunch. There's a couple of stories, but not crunch.
A lot of fluff, yeah.
There's not going to be a whole lot in there. So here's a combat example, right? You have Hodor, who is a street samurai, and he's going up against some Halloweeners, right? He's got a predator, and he's going to go for the leader of the Halloweeners. So Hodor grabs his pistol with his firearms 7 and his agility 5. He has a wireless smart link, so that's a total dice pool of 13. The Halloweeners have an intuition of 3 and a reaction of 4, so their dice pool is 7. So the attacker, Hodor, has 13. The defender has 7.
That's the dice pools.
That's the dice pool. That's step 1. Then you distribute distribute edge, which is step 2. You compare the attack rating of Hodor's predator, which is 10, to the defense rating of the Halloweeners, which is body of 3 plus 1 for leathers. So the predator is 10, and the Halloweener leader has 4. Hodor has a difference that's greater than 4, so Hodor gets a bonus edge. Then you're going to check out the situation. This is kind of where the situational modifiers get abstracted, right? So it's nighttime in a dimly lit alley because Hodor wanted to get them all bunched together and take advantage of the low light vision on his cyber eyes, which the Halloweeners don't have. So that gives a second bonus edge to Hodor. Then you look at other elements that might help either side, such as it's raining, and Hodor is a waterbender, so he gets magic boosts from water. I don't know.
From what I understand, you only give out 1 point of edge total amongst that sort of more vague situational. So you wouldn't give out multiple edge for that.
Okay, well then,
as far as what I could read, and then you move on to whether or not there's edge specifically granted by gear or some other ability.
That's okay. So that's what I was saying, other elements, right? So like if you had some kind of gear that would give you an edge or whatever, then you would.
But Hodor's already got 2 edge, so
Hodor's already got 2 edge.
We can just move on unless there's a way the Halloweeners might get an edge out of things.
Yeah, we might be misunderstanding this, but this is kind of the way the example's going. So Hodor decides to use his 2 bonus edge right away. He wants to end the fight quick. So he uses the 2 bonus edge and 2 of his own edge to activate the 4 edge boost, which is adding your edge to your dice pool. So he gets 5 more dice for a total pool of 18.
This works just like the pre-edging of 5th edition.
Yeah, so he gets 9 hits with the exploding 6s from the edge boost. The Halloweener leader isn't ready to go down without a fight, so he spends a bonus edge, or one of his edge, and one of his minor actions to do a tactical roll edge action, which gives him the advantage of being prone against the attack, which is a +2 dice pool bonus for his defense test. This makes the final defense test dice pool 9, which is his reaction plus intuition +2. and he rolls 4 hits. So Hodor gets 5 net hits, and then they go to soak damage. You calculate the incoming damage using the base damage of the Ares Predator, which is 3p. Add the net hits, which is 5. So that's a modified damage of 8. This should sound very familiar.
Right.
The Halloweener leader rolls body 3 to soak the damage and gets 1 hit.
Yeah,
reducing
again, just body.
Yeah, just your body.
It's also
Go ahead. So he reduces the incoming damage to 7 boxes of physical damage. So it sounds more lethal if I had to guess.
right. Yeah, armor doesn't apply to the damage soak roll, just to the edge based. The giving out edge in step 2 of this. The other thing I wanted to point out is that you may spend as many edge points as you want on any particular edge boost or edge action, but throughout this entire thing, from attack roll to damage soak, you can only do an edge boost once. So you couldn't do pre-edge and then spend some more available edge to reroll some of your dice on the soak roll. Pardon me, I've been having hiccups all day.
That's fine.
Cannot get rid of them.
I just did. I'm gonna check the chat. You guys talk about what I did wrong or what I did right. I think that was right. I think that was
recoil. Palmer is abstracted into attack rating.
Yep.
When you do a big ass like a burst of bullets, you do extra damage, but it's at the cost of lowering your attack rating, so you're less likely to get a point of edge.
Yeah, thank you. Can we talk about firing modes real fast, because that's one of my favorite changes. Holy shite.
Sure. I also want to make sure we don't forget to talk about the initiative system, which we really haven't.
Yeah, initiative is a lot different. I'm gonna let me talk about this, and then we'll move right to initiative.
I'm gonna step away for a second, see if I can't kill my hiccups.
Sure.
I'll be right back.
I have a green highlighter here. I can wipe away parts of my
Serial
face.
Killer says Hodor was Neil the Orc Barbarian's second sidekick. I like it.
So firing modes are massively simplified. It's and abstracted out. So it starts like this. Weapons, assuming that your weapon has all of the firing modes I'm about to mention, then this is what would happen. If you make a single shot, then that's just a standard shooting one bullet. Then the gun does the base damage, and you have your gun's attack rating, and everything's just vanilla. It's normal. You can then fire a semi-automatic in semi-automatic firing mode, and what that is you're just making 2 quick shots, like bam bam, as an attack. What that does is it slightly increases the attack rating of your weapon. No, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. It slightly increases the damage of your weapon, but it decreases the attack rating because you're firing 2 quick bullets, right? It's a little bit harder to hit your target when you're doing that twice. That's to Palmer to get back to what you're saying, is sort of how the recoil is abstracted in, right? So firing 2 quick shots increases the damage you would do if you do hit, but decreases your attack rating. Then you can burst fire, which further increases the damage you could potentially do, but decreases your attack rating. Now here's the really cool thing that I'm super excited. That's it. That's firing modes, by the way. Super simple. But the really cool thing about burst fire mode is you have the option to do a narrow burst, which is what I just described. Your narrow burst firing at a single target, increasing your attack rating and decreasing, I keep doing it backwards, increasing your damage and decreasing your attack rating. Or you can do a wide burst, which is you're targeting 2 targets with the same burst. And it makes it so that each target you're hitting, it counts as if you were hitting both of those with 2 semi-automatic shots, or each one with a semi-automatic shot, 2 targets, which I love because they just worked into firing modes super simple rules for attacking multiple targets. And as you know, as Shadowrun fans, attacking multiple targets is notoriously and difficult in Shadowrun. Let's just put it that way. It's the rules are really convoluted. So
one thing I want to bring up. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, so like, there's a lot of like armor run is dead, or armor doesn't do much, and it's like I kind of agree, but I also kind of want to say I don't care, like, because I really hated showing up to GM like missions, and people show up in like mil spec armor, which never felt Shadowrun to me. It felt like what are you doing? Like showing up dressed like a tank to like to go into a bar. You know what I mean? Like, and I think there was this kind of weird disconnect between like what would actually happen, when a Shadowrunner like walks down the street with this armor on. Does that make sense? Like, I think this makes things feel more Shadowrun-y to me. Almost like watching like a Shadowrun TV show. Like, you wouldn't expect people to be running around in this,
to me,
I don't know. Maybe I'm super wrong, but like
to me, it's just a different way of looking at armor and how it works. Right? It's a different way of making it work in the game system, and it is abstracting things a bit more. But it's also, I think, it helps make the game flow a little bit faster.
Yeah.
I think,
and I'm not saying it's good.
So
I'm not saying I like it more. I'm just saying the feel I get from it is people are going to stop wearing that big ass clunky armor because it doesn't do what what it normally would do.
Yeah,
I don't
know. And that's really important.
Someone was saying, asking about recoil compensation not existing. It doesn't in the traditional sense. There's no more adding up bullets and comparing them to a recoil comp number, but there is.
And everyone said amen, because that was just sucky crap.
Yeah, but there is still like a gas vent recoil compensation firearm accessory, and that allows you to do those firing modes with less of a penalty. But you might have covered that when you were talking about firing modes.
I did not.
No, we didn't. Like, and that's the thing. There's the things have different. I don't know. They're abstract in some ways, but then in other ways, you have, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, I can't caution enough that you shouldn't like draw too many conclusions until you get a chance to look at it. We're doing our best to get you guys excited about it, because we're excited about it.
And there's a lot of these things that like interwork with each other, and you're only getting like very context-less rules, because that's what we're able to read, that's what we're able to respond to. But taken as a whole, I think it's going to work differently than we're presenting.
I'm excited because there were a lot of things that are being changed that I was really effing annoyed by in 5th edition, and I'm excited to see them trying something different, so that maybe it can be better. Daisy Doozy, is that Sarah?
Yes.
Sarah says initiative, and she says, I have no ulterior motive for asking. Maybe she wants to know for our game tomorrow.
Maybe she wants to be an initiative person. I don't know what I was going for there. Go ahead.
Initiative is definitely one of my favorite changes in the new edition.
I know Garde-Manger really liked the initiative and the way that it all worked out.
Yeah, basically your initiative is calculated and rolled more or less the same. You have, you add up a couple of stats, you roll an extra d6, you roll a d6, and whoever gets the highest goes fast. And people with wild reflexes or spells that boost it have more dice to roll and a higher number to add to that. But unlike other editions, there's no multiple passes by taking 10 away or anything like that. There's one whole pass. You go all the way through, and you only roll initiative at the start of the combat. You don't roll it from one combat turn to the next. One of the things you can do with your edge is spend your edge points to boost your initiative score, which will affect further rounds. And then on your turn, you have one major action and then multiple minor actions based on, I think, essentially it's 1 plus however many initiative dice you get to roll.
Speaking of like going back just a second, armor also has like other characteristics other than defense value. So like it has like capacity, right? That you could like put stuff in it, like whether it's like
yes, the status effect things like non-conductivity, but it
So
works a lot differently than it used to. Now it's an ablative thing.
Yeah.
Like you could get non-conductivity 4, and that essentially allows you to ignore the zapped condition 4 times before you have to repair your armor and replace.
Levent Noir hasn't.
I don't like that. I don't like those upkeep rules. I hate stuff like that.
It hasn't removed initiative as an important feature. It's removed the necessity of like re-rolling and and reorganizing and everything. It's just made it faster. You can move yourself through. One of the biggest another big complaint that I heard, another big concern, I'm sorry, that I heard from people is that the initiative changes are taking away from speedy characters, like fast characters, and I don't think that's going to be the case, because you can still spend edge to make yourself go first in the turn order, and you can still take multiple actions. Like, you can still attack multiple times on your turn if you have like wired reflexes, and if you have 3 initiative dice, then you will have 4 minor actions, and you can spend those 4 minor actions to have 2 major actions, to get another major action. So you can attack multiple times in a combat turn if you're a speedy character who has lots of initiative dice.
Yeah, that's where that comes from.
Right. So
you're
move,
not going to
spend
get
your
4
edge.
or 5 times
Right.
around like some people have been able to boost their stuff up to in 5th edition.
And I feel
But
like that's
you
a good
still go
trade-off. I feel like it's a good trade-off, right? Like, a big complaint, and I've played this character before, is the guy who has 1d6 plus 6 or 1d6 plus 5 initiative, and I roll my dice. I get to go in the first round, and then I get to wait and watch my Decker and my Street Sam go 5 more times for the next 45 minutes before I get to do anything again, and it's just not fun. Like I get the Street Sam might be getting a little bit less of a superhero moment, but at the cost of, like, at the benefit of me getting to play a little bit more.
I thought Gardemange seemed like a pretty badass Street Sam in the game that we played.
Yeah. So
I wonder if, like, and I'm just doing a little bit of theorycraft here, but I wonder if you couldn't turn like initiative, like if you roll a high initiative, if you couldn't turn that into like bonus hits, right? To like abstract you being fast and hitting a lot. Like, I wonder if that would work in some other alternate 6th edition Shadowrun.
yeah.
Anyway,
Interesting thought.
moving on. Because I think that's what Mutants and Masterminds does. It kind of just abstracts speedy characters into, like, more damage or whatever.
Do contacts work the same way? I don't know.
That's a good question.
That is a great question.
They seem to be pretty similar. They still have a connection.
Oh yeah, it's charisma based.
And you get some free points of contacts based on your charisma. There's actually a really nice listing of contacts in the book. They do a really good job of laying out the different contacts you might have, some alternate versions of each of them, and the types of services you might be able to use each different contact for. I was pretty impressed by that section of the book.
Yeah. Levent Noir, I'm not going to read your whole example, but, well, maybe I will. 4 passes equals 4 dead dudes as a Street Sam in 5th edition. The 1 pass face sits out after having done their thing, and half, back in. But like, and in 6th edition, but that doesn't help my mage, That doesn't help my, there are plenty of characters that are not faces that haven't done anything yet in the run that still don't get to do much in combat. And also, why not just give everybody something to do all the time? So, but I understand your concern, and hopefully it's fun. I mean, Mr. Johnson says that it seemed to still be fun, but hopefully it is.
See, as far as giving the example context, I don't know of a way to do that without kind of reading out of the book, which might get me into a little trouble. But there's the typical, I guess, the usual suspects, things like fixers and mechanics and street docs and Mr. Johnsons and
beat cop. And
there is actually something that we haven't talked about at all, and I'm hesitant to go into it because I haven't really given it the whole once over. But there's something called reputation and heat. And heat in particular seems like a really cool mechanic where at the end of every run, you roll dice, and if you get above a certain amount, and you have different modifiers based on what happened in the run, then your heat score increases by 1. And then they have this effect that is like these heat effects, like from 0 to 3, this happens, 4 to 6, this happens, and it affects kind of the the overall theme of your game. Like there's not like one particular thing, like somebody doesn't shoot you, but like, for example, if you reach a certain level of heat, the lowest rated sin that you have is burned for every person. It's marked as criminal, and it will set off alerts when you use it. Like there's mechanical reasons why you wouldn't just go in there and blow the doors off everything, because your heat is going to get so high that it will be impossible for you to do things on the lowdown. So I don't like that. There's heat modifiers. I really like it. I haven't got a chance to fiddle with it, but I'm really looking forward to using it in game and finding out how it affects like the overall play style that people use.
There will certainly be heat mechanics employed in our Twitch actual play campaign that will start tomorrow. So we'll be playing with those. You'll get to see them in action to some degree, or it depends on how careful.
Yes, I remember playing Blades in the Dark, Oz, and I think you're right. This reminds me a lot of that.
I'm pretty sure this mechanic is. Well, I don't want to say pretty sure, but I definitely suspect that this mechanic is inspired by the heat mechanic that's used in Blades. We didn't really have much chance to play around with it because we were just doing a one session thing, so we didn't have to deal with the consequences of our really, really noisy heist.
I'm not sure like how much of this is how similar it is, but I do remember like in Blades of the Dark, the one time we played, like that was something that was told to me as something really cool.
It's different. I mean, they didn't rip the heat mechanic off of one thing and stick it onto another. Yeah, I think they saw that and said, "Oh, that's really interesting." I think that would be a good thing to work into Shadowrun.
Conversion rules for from 5th? I don't know. I haven't looked at that. Let me see if there's anything. I didn't see anything off the top of my head.
You could figure them out yourself if you wanted, because there will be things with. I'm almost sure that there will be things with both 5th and 6th.
Maybe that's something that we can work out. Maybe I can get some of us to work out a conversion chart or something like that, because there doesn't seem to be one in here.
Yeah, I love math.
Yeah, maybe Bobby can put that out, and like it's
I'll write some really unnecessary
even one more thing that the Shadowcasters Network is doing for you.
Some things would just be like a one-to-one thing, like the attributes. Right. You could probably just use the same numbers. Your skill ratings, you could use the same numbers, but condense them into the skill.
Conversion is get your whiteout brush and white out all the limits, and you're done.
You may have to eyeball some of the things that might not be statted up, but I don't think it would be that hard to sort of take a look at things and compare them and convert. We haven't decided quite how we're going to do that. When the time will come to do it for our actual play campaign, that will be the continuation of our original actual play. So I'm hoping there'll be more books out by then.
Bloxer Bottle Glib. There's no Drakes in this book. So don't know.
Best name ever, by the way. Take another last concern that I saw that I wrote down in my notes is taking away skills is taking away, like, because the skills have been compressed, like pared down, right? There are fewer skills than there were before, but taking away skills is taking away the granularity of character differentiation, and also takes away from the joy of being a specialist.
I actually don't think that's true, because you have not only being able to specialize in something, but you can actually have an expertise in something, right? So, like, I think this actually keeps the granularity. We're just not talking about that. Is that fair to say?
Say that one more time. I was chatting with the chat.
So yes, you're not going to be like, you can have 6 con, right, and and 0 negotiation, right, in Shadowrun. I guess that's granular, right? But here you could have like a 3 in whatever the face, whatever talking, and then you can specialize in negotiation, and then you can have an expertise in negotiation, which would give you that same granularity. You'd have a 6, right? But like, who do we know that like is just a super good liar and can't negotiate at all. Like, I mean, like
Right.
those skills have some overlap, and that's okay. But if you want to be way better at one of them, you absolutely still can. There are sub skills in each of those, skills.
Let me ask you this live question. I'm thinking about it right now. You ready? Is it gonna be more cost effective for me to have a 6? Like, let's say I want to be really good at shooting a pistol, a heavy pistol. Is it gonna be more cost? Is it gonna be more cost effective for me to have a firearm skill of 3 and a specialized and whatever in heavy pistols, or should I just get a firearms of 6?
I think it's more cost effective to get the expertise.
Does it like it costs less?
I think it does cost less.
In character creation, skill points are kind of the same. Like a skill point doesn't cost you more to put into a higher rating than it does a lower. So from character creation, it's probably always best to go with a higher up rating first, and then you can buy up the specialization and add that later with karma.
You can
from
do
a
both,
mechanic.
by the way. Yeah. But the initial boost you get from specialization, I think, is 2. So I think that's actually going to be more cost effective. But you can only you can only specialize in one thing, and you can't specialize in something else until you've made that specialization
an expertise. Yeah.
I think I read that right.
That sort of makes characters a bit different because you can only specialize in a certain number of things. Also, with character creation, you can only start out with one skill at your max of. Everything else has to be 5 or less.
Yep. We have time for maybe one more question before we gotta bounce. And before we answer that question, while we're looking for or thinking about it, let me remind people that tomorrow night we're going to start an hour earlier. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow night we're going to have Jason Hardy, Shadowrun Line developer, here. So if you've enjoyed talking to us now and there are things that you want to ask that we can't answer, or you just have more questions that we never got to tonight, we're going to be back tomorrow for about an hour and a half or so. And then right after that, you'll get to see this game in action while we crank up and get rolling with our Shadowrun 6th edition actual play. That's going to start on tomorrow night.
I'm playing a Decker, so that should be hilarious.
Yeah. I can't believe it that you're.
I wanted to push myself because I hate decking. I hate 5th edition decking.
Every time we ever play any game with Opti, he goes, "I'm playing Opti."
Or I'm the shaman.
All right, yeah, I'm the shaman. Sorry, magic roll filled. Sarah has decided she wanted to be the magic person. I think Opti was being nice to our.
I was being nice because Sarah's got a type, and I didn't want her to feel left out.
Yeah. So that's awesome. We have another question.
How to help market the product? I just want to say we're not answering the question because we don't want to. We're not answering the question because that's not our. That's not our question job. For Catalyst. Yep.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about it because frankly it benefits us and we're excited about it.
Yeah, we're helping to market it, and then what we get in return is more people showing up and paying attention to our channel and stuff. And that's we hope that we live up to that responsibility and are a good resource for you to turn to for that. Yeah. But as time goes on, there'll be more.
Catalyst, and we're not going to do free work.
No,
sorry.
Yep.
Let's see. What? I do think Exotic Teacup. I do think this edition is going to be a lot more user friendly for new people. I don't know how it could not compared to 5th edition. So whether it's a great edition or whether it's better than 5th, I don't know. But I do 100% know that it's going to be easier for new people to pick up. 100%.
Yeah, the book is just smaller. Like, it will literally be easier for people to pick up.
You know what, Commander Dunsale? I would love to have those archetypes like Detective and Rocker come back. I made a push. Cliff can back me up. I made a push to include certain things that would have made those archetypes valid and valuable. And I hope I get a chance to do so again, but I don't think so. I as of this point, I don't think so. But no, actually, check this out. I just thought of something. No Future is actually the hardcover release is getting a dual stat. Isn't that what I heard? Cliff?
Actually, from what I understand from what Jason said, is that the PDF release is a 5th edition book, but the 6th edition release will be, or the hard copy release will be for 6th edition. I don't know that it will be dual statted. I think the hard copy will be a 6th ed book.
Okay, so if it's a 6th ed book, then there actually is rules for you to make a rocker in the back of No Future. So if that one comes out, then you could absolutely make a rocker. I don't know if there are any detective rules in No Future.
I would hope there would be a re-release of the PDF, but that is not a question I know the definite answer to.
I don't know why they wouldn't.
Right. Why would they? But,
Right, yeah. Because they'll obviously have the PDF, but I don't know if they'll...
I can't imagine them not doing it, right?
Right, I don't know why they wouldn't. But again, we're not in charge of their marketing or their product releases.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for us tonight. Me and Mr. Johnson will be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern with Jason Hardy to talk to him, and mostly our purpose there is just to force him to be here to answer your questions. So come with questions. That's the whole point. If you
force him, as if he hasn't been super accommodating to like everything we ask. Hey, Jason, can we do this? He's sure, go ahead. So like, what? Yeah. Really? We can? Like, okay, but can we do this then? Like, yeah. Okay, but what about this? Like, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, he's been great. He's been great, and I'm excited to have him here tomorrow to talk to you guys. So come with your questions, and we'll have a good time. And like I keep saying, after that, we're gonna get to play. I keep saying it because I'm excited that I finally I'm getting to actually play. Yay! Tomorrow night, 6th edition. So super excited about that. Yeah.
He's playing Rooster. The guy who takes his role on the SCN too seriously.
Yeah. I'm playing myself, right?
He's playing Bobby.
All right, guys. Thank you for showing up tonight, and I hope we were able to answer a lot of your questions. I know you probably have more, and so do we, and we're all going to figure this out together. Keep in tune. Keep in touch with all of our stuff. Complex Action YouTube channel. I'll be doing some review videos. Our Arcology podcast. I'm sure we'll be doing lots of stuff. Opti has the Neo-Anarchist podcast with already some playthroughs of the Quick Start rules, so you should check that out.
Yeah, we got the Shadowrun Origins podcast, the actual play that did some actual play with the box set rules, and we got another Neo-Anarchist podcast that just dropped. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. So check that out and stay tuned to all the other stuff we're doing here. And if you like what we're doing, click the follow button. It doesn't cost you anything, and just like Mike just did. And you can check out all the stuff we do. All right, guys, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow night. And so happy that so many people are showing up to get excited with us about 6th edition. So, bye, chummers.